infinite complacence, people went to and fro over the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space.
On this episode of Into the Fray, I welcome back on Tina and Laura. You guys were asking if they would be back, and here they are, part 2, back to back. So, 391 was titled The Troll. The ladies have not heard, well, they have heard it because they heard it on Patreon, but we are going to air these back to back. So tonight, 391 airs, and then 392, as yet to be titled, will be the next one. And we'll see about part 3 because I'm sure it won't be done after today either. Tina and Laura are, of course, the co-owners, co-founders of Free Will Healing in St. George, Utah. You can visit them at freewillhealing.com. Now, I usually say this with two-parters. I would hazard to say it'd be good to go back to part 1, start there when it comes to the subjects the ladies cover, because we also got into their backgrounds and things like that. So I would hazard to say start at 391 before you partake of 392. Well, ladies, welcome back, and I apologize for my smoky voice. I'm a little under the weather today.
You just sound sexy, honey. You're fine.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I could sing baritone today if I needed to.
There you go.
And we were commenting before we officially started that you guys had kind of a weird feeling about today. Not that you shouldn't do it, just that there was a little darkness around the whole affair. And I commented the fact that StreamYard is showing me hey, we have a very low internet connection, which I haven't had one this low pretty much ever. So that's interesting. So we kind of did a little thing before we started to hopefully gather all of the energy that we could, the good stuff to keep this going, and no technical difficulties. So thank you for doing that, but we will see how we fare.
Yeah, it happens to us quite a bit.
Yeah, whenever we are going to be speaking about things that are not common knowledge. I was really actually surprised that last week it didn't happen.
It was smooth. Mm-hmm.
It went pretty
We caught them off guard.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I appreciate you being accommodating for our process.
Absolutely. No problem. You guys have fascinating stories, and we're going to hear more today. Now, we've already... The other thing that we discussed is the fact that there are some things that we already know between the three of us are going to be shared for Patreons only. And that's not to be mean to the public that hears things for free. I'm not trying to get everybody over to my paid side. There are just some things that might be a little bit much for the public. So I'm going to say that right now. There's going to be some stuff that's going to be reserved for Patreon members only. But, okay, I've got the list in front of me here, Tina, that just sent me. Should we start then with things that have happened, extremely recent, in that since we last talked, there's been things going down? Or should we go down the list that you sent me in order? Up to you guys.
I think that we should save what happened last Thursday after we recorded.
Okay.
I think we should save that. We'll work up to that one.
Mm-hmm.
And
yesterday's as well.
And yesterday's as well. So we'll just, how about if we just start on the list, and we'll do what we did last week and follow your cue.
No, sounds good. The first thing on the email, the list of the email was sex workers. So, that's a good place to start. I don't know.
Name. Yeah. I won't say the name, but it is Skinwalkers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, at my house, we don't say the name. And the reason that we don't say the name is because I said it out loud once and had an experience just here in St. George. And so ever since then, I don't say it, like everybody in my house just says sex worker. So when I say sex worker, I'm actually referring to
Skinwalkers.
There we go.
My daughter was very confused when she heard that last time.
Well, the irony is, right, is that you're playing it safe by not saying skinwalkers, but then again, you're play it safe, sex workers, haha, like, yeah. Bad joke. Sorry, that was a horrible joke.
We have minors.
Well, and remember this, I have no judgment. So sex workers, I think they provide a service. So
yes, they do.
I have no judgment on them. So I feel more comfortable with that and hey, if I'm giving them some publicity, helping them make some money, I feel like,
It's still illegal.
Not where Shannon lived.
in Pahrump, over the hump in Pahrump, Nevada, it is very, very legal over there.
So I will start with my earliest memory of a sex worker that I didn't know what it was because I was just a little kid, and I think that they were drawn to me when I was younger because of the fact that I lived in a very abusive household. There was a lot of darkness in that space. And I don't know, maybe they wanted to move in. I don't know. They felt like they'd fit right in. I'm not sure.
That energy.
So, but we lived at this time, we lived in the state of Kansas, and we lived way out in the country. I would say probably because I was always outside, always when I was a little girl. I would say probably by 9 o'clock, about the time it would start, like in the summertime, it would start getting dark, I would be inside because I just always felt scary outside when it was dark if I was by myself. If there were other people out there, I was okay. But if I was by myself, it just felt creepy. And let me set up the way that the property was. So we had probably like 30 acres, but the house itself, where it sat, was completely surrounded on 3 sides with what we called a shelter belt. It was all trees. So there was one opening that went out towards like the barn, and we raised cattle and horses and everything. But otherwise, it was pretty dense. It was my playground, and I was perfectly fine during the day. It was at nighttime. So at nighttime, I would go inside because it just creeped me out, right? And my home life, it took a lot to creep me out. You know what I mean? For me to be more comfortable going inside than staying outside, that's saying a lot. And my room was right on the corner of the house, and it had 2 windows, both of them facing a shelter belt, right? So at nighttime, my mother told me that I always had horrible nightmares, and I would always say that there was something scratching at my window. And because nobody talked about sex workers back then, because I'm 54 now, right? So you're talking 44 years ago. And nobody really talked about that thing. All I thought of it was it was a monster. And it wasn't until probably in the last couple of years where you're starting to see more and more videos of sex workers that I would tell my husband, that's what that thing outside my window when I was a little girl would look like. So let's fast forward now, St. George, Utah, probably about a year and a half ago. And I was sitting outside, and my youngest daughter was sitting out there with me. She was 21 at the time. I had just listened to a podcast about a sex worker. My daughter said, she's like, Mom, don't listen to that outside because they keep saying the word. And I said, what's the big deal? And she was like, you're not supposed to say the word. It draws them to you. So I started saying the 2 words to get being a smartass repeatedly because I don't fear anything, right? Well, then, and she's like, Mom, you're crazy. And she got up and went inside. She was like, you shouldn't do that. And so she goes inside, and I was literally laughing about it. I was like, oh my goodness, seriously, you're not, it's not like I'm Dracula, come visit, you know what I mean? And so I sat there and I was just listening to another podcast. Where I live, my backyard is very quiet, very
cul-de-sac.
Yeah, it's like I'm at the end of a cul-de-sac, and our backyard is outside of a walkout basement, so I'm not even at street level. And the next row of houses, like my backyard is level with their roof, so it's very, very quiet, and we don't have any outside animals like of our own. I mean, I've seen a raccoon a time or two, but nothing big. So I was sitting out there and I was still giggling to myself at how ridiculous my daughter had acted. All of a sudden I hear this noise. So around the side of our back of our house, we have a built-on room that has a hot tub in it. I keep hearing like this rustling noise, like almost like leaves, and but there aren't any. It's all sidewalk going back, and I was like, what on earth is that? Then I started hearing like a scratching noise. So I get up and I go and I look around the corner, and there's nothing there. And I sit back down. I'm like, okay, I'm freaking myself out. Stop it. This isn't even real. And so I go back to listening to my podcast. I was playing a game on my phone. I see like out of the corner of my right eye. Well, first I get this like overwhelming sense of dread. And I'm telling you, like, my house is the most peaceful place on this earth. And I have never felt any kind of dread or anything there.
Right, yeah.
Or yeah, it feels like very, very safe, And then I get this overwhelming sense of dread. And again, I'm telling myself, stop being ridiculous. And I see something out of the corner of my eye. And I look to my right, and this, what I thought was like this head popped back, like around the corner. And I was going to get up and go, like, is that a person? Like, what are they doing? And I stood up, and I very clearly heard God say, get inside now and lock the door. And I was like, but get inside now and lock the door. And so I did it. I went inside and I locked the door, and I went and told my daughter, and she's like, I told you. At the time, it was just my youngest daughter that was living with us. And I told my husband, literally all night long, we heard like scratching on the side of the house. We heard, it was just very, very weird. And so I don't use that word anymore.
And it's interesting because this summer, my husband's family trip that they make every year is like going to be like right next to Skinwalker Ranch.
Sex worker ranch.
Sex worker.
All right.
So Shannon's like, I'm part of the family. I want to go.
I'm heading out there.
That will.
Did
Yeah.
Did the sex worker from a year and a half ago look alike or similar to the one that would be outside your window when you were a kid?
The ones that would come to my window would literally like bang and scratch on my window. So I'm just going to go on energy because I saw them very clearly. This was like just this very pale, opaque, and it was very brief. So, but I'm going to tell you, I feel the energy of things very strongly. It was the same energy, and not energy of fear, but energy of the being. Does that make sense?
Well, what did the ones outside the window look like?
So they're very pale looking. It was almost like they didn't have eyes. Like, I always thought that they were aliens, right? Because of an event that happened to me when I was a child, but they didn't look like the same type of alien that I had seen. And so I used to think they were aliens, but since I have seen videos in the last like 3 or 4 years, it's very different. It looks like a human being that is rotting. Yeah,
Lovely.
That's basically what it like their skin is peeling off.
That's horrifying horrifying for anyone to see, but especially as a kid.
Mm-hmm. And there would always be like the next, I had scratch marks like on the screen of my window. And I used to get in trouble all the time because my dad would always, because I love cats, and I always had cats, and he thought it was like the cats trying to like climb up on the screen to like say, let me in. But it wasn't. I mean, if a cat could do that, that's more like a saber-toothed tiger could do that. You know what I mean? Like the scratch marks weren't like a cat. The other thing is it was only like 3 claws, whereas cats have more, you know, and they're very, and it was like it was almost like they were consciously trying to not touch the screen. It was just scratch marks where it was damaging the screen, but it wasn't, because I'm sure that they could have cut through it. I think it was literally just feeding off of my fear.
So what's the law there with sex workers? Is it much like, like a Salem's Lot, like vampires, like you'd have to invite it in? Like why? It sounds like it could probably easily get in if it really wanted to.
I do believe that myself personally, and I know Laura believes this too, which will lead to our later story, that anything that is demonic or is of a serious negative energy, it does have to be invited in by whom they are trying to target. And they were obviously trying to target me, right? And I was terrified of them. I wasn't going to invite them. I mean, if I thought that we could make friends and they would leave me alone, I might have, but I was pretty sure they didn't. I was pretty sure they didn't want to sit down for Blade.
Maybe if they put on prettier skin, you know.
For that.
Like, oh, you're a little melty there, son. Let's get something prettier on. You can come in. We can play Barbies, whatever the hell.
No, I'm like, dude, a little bit of sunlight, elevates the mood. B, gets rid of the pasty, and maybe better blood flow. I'm just saying, skin won't fall.
Yeah, a little more blood flow might be good. You know, the whole undead thing isn't a good look on you. I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. So, but it's just, it's kind of like when somebody has encountered a ghost, right? Or a dead, somebody who has died that is now a spirit or whatever. When you encounter it enough times, you know that energy when you feel it. It is the way, and it's not necessarily the energy, it's the way your body responds to that energy. It is crystal clear to me. It wasn't until it happened here in St. George. Mm-hmm. It is crystal clear to me that is what the energy feels like of that.
All right.
Which just FYI, all my neighbors, and this is just a weird little fact. So even though, it's very private, all of my neighbors have trees that surround the fence that I can see. Like I can see all the trees. And so that's why I threw in the shelter belt thing, because it's almost like that's where they would have cover. You know what I mean?
It's so gross to think about where do they go? When they're not creeping around windows and being little a-holes, where do they go? What do they do? What do they eat? That's fascinating to me.
I was just talking about this with the practitioner this morning. And so like the theory, right, that they may be extraterrestrials or coming through a portal, and everybody's like, fear everything. Well, they have a negative energy. So yeah, people fear them, but it's like, just like humans, there's good humans and there's horrible humans, right? So to me, there are good beings in other realms and in other planets, just as well as there are bad ones. So unfortunately, they have some way to creep in.
Yeah. And I do, there are portals everywhere. Mm-hmm. And that's going to tie into another story that on your list there, when it comes to Bigfoot. But there are portals everywhere. I don't know how they work. And so, did they open a portal in my backyard and say, oh, she called us? So, did me even saying sex worker, did that open the portal? Like, did I, is it like
Bloody Mary?
That's exactly what I was going to say. Like if you say Bloody Mary in the mirror too many times, she appears, you know what I'm saying? Like, does that open a portal and Bloody Mary's there and then?
Oh, no, there's no mirrors in here.
No, there's no mirrors for that.
The interesting thing is, ladies, and we've talked a lot about this on 391, and you kind of, I don't know, lack of a better term, quote unquote, viewed me for a second and maybe saw why I'm so blocked, essentially, is maybe a good word for it, to not have a whole lot of experiences. But I would hazard to say I've tried Bloody Mary and not a whole lot happened, and maybe that's why, right? But I'd hazard to say if you ladies tried Bloody Mary, that woman's probably jumped right out of that mirror. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it.
No need. You guys have enough going on, right? Like, why poke the bear?
We don't need help making things happen. And
no.
I don't know if you're some kind of a conduit, but I'm going to tell you, Shannon, since last Thursday when we talked to you,
shit's gone down.
I mean, it has been insane to the point where last night when I went home and I was telling my husband some things that happened yesterday, and we had photographic evidence, right? And my husband just looked at me and he was like, "You can't deny that." And I'm like, "Yeah, no." And he's like, "You guys should sell tickets." Like, you know what I mean? Like
spend the day
with Free Will Healing with Tina and Laura and see what happens, I mean, I'm thinking that you're some kind of a conduit that makes things intensify. I'm just saying.
But not for myself. No, I'm just kidding.
Being here in person will probably elevate it even more.
Yep. I'm really going to do that, by the way. I will be out there. We got to set that up.
Live from Free Will Healing.
Yeah.
Well, I think what we should do is have her come spend a couple of days and then record episode 3. Mm-hmm. And her and you and I will interview her on all the things that she encountered.
Seriously. Oh, gosh.
That would be awesome.
At that point, if I even had one thing happen, I would... Oh, it'd be wonderful.
Shannon,
be way more than one.
I'm going to tell you, Shannon, you have things happen all the time.
Yeah. Is it possible that you don't?
Yeah.
It's just the way your brain is trying to tell you it's not real.
Damn it, brain. All right, so
let's clear that. Do you ever do like a clearing out your third eye, pineal gland stuff?
Mm-mm.
So that is where I'm going to recommend you start, and we can talk about that later.
Okay. I know that thing is so calcified right now. It's like dinosaur bone calcification.
More, but there is a way to undo that. So.
Okay.
We got your back, girl.
I know you do. Thank you. All right. So next on the list is the fairy encounter, and I know that this was recent. Now, are we saving the Fae encounter, the Hellhound, and the alien for the end for the Patreons, or is some of this going to be for me? Is that
this
yesterday's event?
No, she doesn't know about she knows about the first one, but her listeners don't. So we actually had a second fairy encounter yesterday with 2 other practitioners.
So what I'm saying, we're saving yesterday's event for the Patreon.
Right. All right. So was it last Friday? I believe. I was in my office and I was with a client. I had an experience with a fairy. I don't know if we talked about this last week.
I don't think so.
But I had an experience with a fairy when I was a little girl. I was about 10 years old. She had helped me hide from my brother, not because we were playing hide and seek, but because he was wanting to harm me. And so she had helped me hide. That shelter belt that the Skinwalker... sex workers hung out in. Anyways, where the sex workers hung out in during the daytime, that was my playground. And so I was out there and I heard my brother coming. This fairy, just like beautiful, beautiful fairy, pops out of nowhere. She helps me to hide from him. And so as a thank you, I made a mud pie for her because, that I'm 10 and that's what I have to give. And I mean, my mud pies were excellent. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I was a very good cook even then, but not understanding that giving mud to a fairy is very offensive. Now, if I would have put a flower on it, or if I would have put like some shiny rocks in it or something like that, it would have been fine. But I didn't know that. And I mean, it was like a 3-layer cake with frosting in the middle, mud pie. Anyway, so when I presented it to her, because, I wanted to tell her thank you, and it was all I had to give, she bit me in the face, and I had a scar on my right cheek by my jawline, probably into my late teens.
It was a woke fairy. It was like, I deserve better than that.
She's like, I am of value. I deserve better than mud. So I've always kind of had like this, like, I don't want to see them. I don't want to, like, it's like another one of those things from my childhood where it's like, yeah, no, I'm good. Thanks. Anyway, so last Friday, I was sitting in my office and I was doing a session with a client and everything. I stood up and picked up something and sat back down. And when I sat down, out of the corner of my eye, I saw something shoot across the floor, and it stopped at I have like an upright fan. I looked over and it ran around the side of the fan, and it was like glowing orange. And I was like, I did not just see what I thought I saw. There's no way I just saw what I thought I saw. And I looked at my client who's looking over in that area, and I get up and I go and I move the fan, and I'm like, okay, I'm crazy. So I look at my client and I said, did you see? And before I could finish my sentence, he said, an orange glowing fairy run across the floor? Yes, I did. And I just went, oh shit, you saw what I saw. And he just sat there and looked at me and he goes, I love coming to this place. So that was really interesting and, kind of a cool story. And then yesterday, Laura and Valdez, the Palladian, which both of them want to speak with you, Shannon. They said whenever you want to, they're available. But anyway, so Howie, the Moldakian, and Valdez, the Palladian, they were setting up Valdez's sound bowls. And Laura and I were outside just recovering from our day. And we were sitting outside on the landing, and Valdez comes out and she goes, so you're not going to believe what just happened. And we're like, what happened? Because, we don't guess anymore. We're just like, yeah, just tell us. She said, Howie and I were setting up my bowls. She said, I saw a fairy shoot out from one of my bowls and run into my office. She said, I looked at Howie, and Howie said, yeah, I just saw the fairy run across. And so she goes into her office after I told her about the fairy story from last week, right? She had told me, she goes, I have a fairy door in my office. And I'm like, a what? And she said, I have a fairy door where they come in and out of. And I didn't go see it because I was still a little freaked, but I know that you went and saw.
Yeah, I had to crouch down, look under her chair.
And it was under there. But so when her and Howie went in after this to go look at it, I guess the door was like standing open. So take it for what you will. I didn't see it with my own two eyes, but I do trust the two of them. But it was almost identical to what I had seen.
So it was different colors. Asking her this morning.
I was going to ask you, did you ask?
It was blue and white.
Huh, blue's my favorite color, and I got the orange one. Great. See? Told you, fairies don't like me.
So orange means more negativity surrounding that fairy, or?
Oh, no.
It's your sacral.
That's exactly why the orange one was. So it's orange represents your sacral chakra. I call it the kuka chakra. And so probably the fairy was like, hey, maybe you need to be nicer to your husband.
I do not think that was Furry's purpose that day.
Are we hounding about doing dishes again? What the heck?
Oh, that's funny. So that was the two fairy events that we had within less than a week of each other. I'm telling you, you opened up something in free will healing, Shannon.
Oh God, what's going to happen this following week after this discussion?
Oh no, but I'm going to leave my camera rolling at all times.
Yeah. Plus, you said you said the bad word accidentally, so.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Say that again.
I said you said the bad word accidentally. You didn't say sex workers.
I know.
Dun, dun, dun.
It'll be fine.
Yeah, there's no trees around our office.
A welcome mat at the front.
Yeah. If you are concerned about sex workers, do not have a mat in front of your door that says "Please come in." Dracula. Because Dracula could come too.
Would love to meet a vampire, but hey, that's just me. Not too close, though.
Head over to Hollywood. I think you may find
yeah, that's for yeah. Let everybody at Free Will Healing know that if there's anyone that looks real melty outside, don't let them in.
Yeah, well, so because
they probably let him in. Like, oh, he looks hot.
Oh,
it's hot outside.
We can heal that.
It's the desert.
I can see them bringing him into our office saying, "Hey, can you guys do an assessment?"
A little. He's like, "You got a nip tuck here too, or what?"
Patch for that.
I got a patch for that.
Yeah.
Sorry, Shannon. We're a little giggly this morning.
That's all right. It might be needed because I know there's some dark stuff to talk about.
It's been an intense week. I'm just gonna say that it's been
it's funny now that you said that, because we've been turning a lot of stuff into humor. Like, heck,
we have to color that one too.
Okay.
So, anyways, go ahead.
No, you guys go right ahead. Whatever you want to talk about next.
I know what was next on the list.
Well, I will just, since this one isn't on the list.
Okay.
We'll share it. So one of our practitioners who is
elderly.
He's elderly and he is a Reiki master. He had driven to Las Vegas. I should have called Shannon and had her go there. She could have witnessed. Okay. Anyways, so he took his son to drop his son off in Vegas, and
we won't give private details.
Yeah, and he's in his 70s, and he
had an infection.
He got really sick, and actually was taken by ambulance to the hospital, and he was in a lot of pain. And of course, first people he calls is me and Laura, of like, can you get rid of this, right? And he was in so much pain, and it was just heartbreaking for both of us. And so I told him, I said, okay, put your left hand out. I said, Laura and I are going to send Archangel Michael to you to just comfort and to help with the pain. Within like 10 seconds, because now let's keep in mind, he grew up very Catholic. He's not Catholic anymore. And in the Catholic religion, Laura, what do archangels?
Yeah, I mean, if angels are showing up, it pretty much means you're on the way out.
You're right. Yeah, they're coming to get you to take you home, And so I say to him, look, put your left hand out. And I said, do you feel him? And he said, yes. And I said, okay, he's looked to your left. And he saw him. And he starts screaming, Michael, no, Michael, no. And then he starts screaming, help, help. And we hear like hospital staff coming in, and they're like, sir, and I'm like, he's fine. Yeah. They're going to put him in a psych ward.
We were not laughing at the time.
No,
we were
it was heartbreaking.
Heartbreaking that he was so sad. But then as he got better, we were like, oh my God, poor guy. He thought he was on his way out while we were sending him comfort.
And so I spoke with, after the danger was over, right? And he called us back, and I was talking to him about it, and I said, you sound so much better. I'm so glad that you're feeling better. Your daughter should be there in, like an hour. And he said, yeah, I'm doing so much better. And I said, we didn't mean to scare you by sending Michael. And he's like, how did you know he was here? And I said, remember, I told you that Laura and I were going to send him. I told you to put your left hand out. And he goes, I was in so much pain and on so much pain medication. All I know is just all of a sudden he was there, and I thought he was coming to take me to heaven. And I said, there is no hell, Salvador, so he wasn't going to take you to hell.
And take the name out again.
Yeah. And anyways, he said, I saw him. I felt him holding my hand he was on my left side. And I think he didn't even remember like speaking to us because he was so medicated. And he said, and it scared me. I said, yeah, I know. You started screaming, and the staff came in. They were going to put you in a psych ward. We had to convince them that, it was just that you just saw an angel, And he was like, oh, I should have known you would do that. But yeah, so it's an interesting week.
There's been a lot going down.
Yeah, this has all been just since everything except for the sex worker has happened since we talked to you. So God had told me that we felt like a huge energy shift going on.
We were off that day.
We were so off. Laura and I both were. And God said, he said a portal closed in Indonesia and opened in St. George. And he said, I'm going to need you to go there. And I'm like, okay, well, where is it? Like, I can drive there, right? Because, I don't hike or like, I don't sweat. And he was like, it'll be revealed where it's at. And so we were talking to Leila, who is the one from the Ute tribe, because she knows every inch of everything here. Daily. She hikes everywhere. And so she said, I think I know where it opened. The energy had changed there. She said, I'll go look. I think it was that day.
Mm-hmm. She
went that day and she literally found it and she said, it's huge. It's like it's inside a mountain and it comes out both sides. It's like the opening is on both sides of the mountain. It's huge. So she literally dropped a pin and gave us coordinates. So I'm sitting there looking at the coordinates and I'm like, I'm going to have to effing hike. I don't even know that I have tennis shoes. You know what I'm saying? Like, what? And so the next day I found tennis shoes and I asked my husband, I'm like, do you know where these came from? He said, yeah, I bought them for you years ago. And I'm like, oh, well, they're still nice and white and shiny. And so I take the shoes and get here and Laura's laughing because she's like, oh, you're really going to do it. And I was like, God told me I have to. So yes, I'm going to do it. And so Laura and I drove out there and
put it there on purpose.
Laura. So anyway, so we get out there and as we are getting close to where we would park to start walking, I feel this like pressure on my stomach. Like it's almost like if you had a medicine ball and you had it between you and a wall and if you try and push it against the wall with your stomach and that ball like pushes into you, it was like almost like a resistance, if you will. So we park the car and we get out of the car and I'm like, oh, you know what? That trail doesn't look bad. That's bad. You know what? I can do that. Like it was a very well-maintained trail. And so we start walking and we're just following where we're being told to go. And then we're told to go off-roading. And I'm just sitting there going, why are you mad at me? What did I do? And so we follow where we're being told to go.
I take a nice little tumble.
Yeah, well, we're not there yet. We haven't gotten to the mushroom yet. So we get to, God is talking to me, saying, you need to pick up the green stones. I said, maybe I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but everything out here is red. It's like all red rock. Like there aren't any green stones out here, Father. And he's like, look by the mushroom. I'm like, there's not any mushrooms either. And then we come up over this like little hill and there is a rock formation that literally looks exactly like a mushroom.
Yeah, you can't miss it.
You cannot miss it. And so I'm like, is that the mushroom? So that's when
they're Smurfs.
So there was just this little tiny dip, and Laura's in way better shape than I am, right? So if anybody's going to get hurt, it's going to be me. And so we go down this little tiny dip going, and I'm focused on this mushroom. I hear something behind me, and literally it was like something like pushed Laura, and she fell and broke her wrist.
Yay.
I was pausing for that.
And I was leaving that evening for a retreat too.
Yeah,
I was not expecting that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I stop and I'm like, Laura, you good? And because I heard the bone pop and I asked her, I said, was that your phone hitting the ground or was that? I said, or was that your wrist? And then I looked down at her wrist and I was like, oh, it was your wrist. Okay. And I said, do you want to go back? And she said, no, they're not stopping us. We're going to keep
They should know better than that.
Yeah, we're going to keep going. And I said, there's the mushroom that God told me, was telling me about. And so we get up to this mushroom. She's like kind of trying to stabilize her wrist as best as possible. So I look down at the base of this mushroom formation, right? This rock that looks like, and I'm not talking like it's probably chest high to me. So it's a huge mushroom formation rock. Did we get a picture of it? Okay, which we'll send you a picture of because Laura has a picture of it. And I look down at the base of this mushroom, and on the ground at the base of this mushroom is these green teal, like a very light teal colored, sparkly rocks. And it's all around the base of this mushroom. And I was like, will you look at that? There's green rocks. So he tells me, pick all of them up. And I'm like, all of them? And he's like,
well, yeah, Laura broke her wrist.
Yeah.
You want her to carry it?
I think you broke your wrist on purpose, so I'd have to carry all the rocks.
No, you never know.
Busted.
So I picked up all the rocks. Yeah, exactly.
Damn it.
So I pick up like this armful of green rocks, and they're probably about the size of like a dollar bill, right? But in different shapes. And so I pick up as many as I can carry, and we keep walking. And a little bit farther down this trail, we both of us just feel this intense energy. And we look over to this formation, and it looks like a spaceship with like a
It looked like the one of the Star Wars spaceships.
yeah, like the Battlestar Galactica or something. As you go, like, but it had this like opening that you could go inside of it. So I was like, I think this is it. I think this is where we're supposed to go. And so we go inside of it, and as soon as my head is never quiet, ever, 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 never, even when I'm trying to sleep or meditation, never. My head is never quiet. I'm always hearing at least 3 to 4 conversations going on in other places, right? Everything was completely silent. As soon as I stepped into that formation and I looked at Laura, and I'm like, my head is completely quiet. So, and she's like, my wrist is broken. Shut up. And so she sits down. I go to sit down, and God said, put the green rocks around, like in a circle around the two of you. And it's not a huge opening. So I'm like doing the best I can to like put the rocks around us and everything. Anyway, so as soon as I put the rocks around us, it is very simple for me to go in and out of the heavenly realm. Like I don't have to create a Merkaba or anything like that. That's where I work, right? But I can help other people get there, right? We talked about that last time. But this time, Laura didn't have to do anything. It was almost like they just like sucked us up into the heavenly realm. The sad thing is, because of what happens next, I don't even remember.
No, I remember.
You remember what they said?
Well, I mean, we had different things. They were helping me with my wrist, remember?
Right. Oh, that's right. Yeah. Because literally God said to Laura, hand me your wrist. And so I can't remember. He was telling me something. I can't remember, but it was really important. I have it written down somewhere. So we're good. We didn't lose the information.
So they have, and it wasn't God. It was, I'm assuming it was Jesus and some kind of feminine energy. And I don't know if it was Mary Magdalene, whoever. They're holding my wrist. And I don't know if they're working on it or what they're doing, but they're holding my wrist. And I just kept feeling I need to go. Like you could see out the way we walked in, and then there was a path leading out. And you could see both ways out of this little shelter that we were in. And I kept feeling, and not physically, just my higher self, if you want to call it, I kept saying, I need to go over there. And they kept holding my wrist and saying, no, hold on. And I'm like, no, I need to go over there. And it's just, no, hold on. They have my wrist. And of course I'm in pain. And I'm like, I need to go over there. Next thing I know, I hear this like shrill, this screech. And I thought, oh, maybe it's kids hiking, trying to debunk that. And then all of a sudden I hear this dog panting, like a very excited dog. Almost.
Right. Well, it sounded like a dog running, like, when a dog like is running hard and they're like, panting really hard.
And I think, okay, we're going to see this dog walk. I mean, because it was loud.
I mean, it was right next to us.
It sounded like it was right next to us.
Like right on the other side of the rocks.
And instantly Tina and I are like shoved back into our present, our bodies, present bodies. And we are looking around, and there is nothing for miles. No people, no dogs, no nothing. And so it is said that sometimes when you astral project or you travel, that there are, of course, negative things. And actually in this book that I've been reading, it talks about hellhounds. And it says, if you hear the hellhounds, get back to your body immediately. And we were immediately transported, and it was just very, and a better storyteller than I am at these things. I'm like, these are the facts. This is what happened.
She's a warrior. She just gives you because as soon as we got, it was very weird because, like I said, I go in and out of the heavenly realm all the time, and I have never been shoved back into my body before. Like, it's always a very peaceful, loving, okay, time to go, kind of thing. And it was like it disoriented me at first, and instantly God said, go now. The two of you need to go now. I was like, and was starting to put it all together. I heard the panting because I've encountered hellhounds before, but I've visibly seen them before. You know what I mean? And so this was unusual that I was just hearing it. But he was just like, you're safe, but you need to go, and you need to go now.
Yeah.
And so we started and left there.
Yeah, and it was like my higher self, my warrior self was like, something's coming. And I know it sounds fantastical, but I knew there was danger. Like I could sense it, and I kept trying to pull away from them. Like, and who would pull away from, you're with a heavenly being, who would think, I want to go over there. I just kept having that sensation. And next thing you know, and from the area that I was wanting to go look at and assess, that's where the sounds were coming from. So it was very, very interesting.
So just to validate what we've just said, because I know it sounds crazy, because we're not crazy. We understand how crazy it sounds. I'm going to have Laura explain to you what a crystal Merkaba is. And I'm while I am sending you pictures.
Yeah, I just got
so
that
one of our practitioners gave us these crystal Merkabas, and the Merkabas is
it was the alien. It was the Palladian
crystals, and we had been noticing anytime I carry it, something odd happens, and I carry it a lot on purpose. But we've been noticing, like looking it up into the light, that these impressions were getting put inside this. I don't know if you remember that Superman movie, one of the very first ones with Christopher Reeve, that they would put these negative people inside this like 2D prism.
Absolutely.
Right? And they were trapped there. And so it almost feels like the negative energies and stuff that's happening to us is getting imprinted on this crystal. And then
like it's telling a story.
And with the events that happened yesterday, I was like, I haven't looked at the crystal in a while. And sure enough, and we'll show that to you later, those events were recorded. But then as I'm twirling the crystal more, I see the vultures. I see the dragon. So in the vultures, I see the hellhound. It's very interesting.
So the first picture I sent you, Shannon, is because I'm going to explain it to you so that when you put them on there, your listeners can actually kind of follow along too. So the very first picture I sent you is just a picture of what the Merkaba looks like, right? And you can kind of see something in the middle there. There's something there, right?
And mind you, when we got these crystals, they were just
clear.
Clear.
Yeah. So then if the second picture I sent you, it was enlarged a bit. So to your left, like in the center, but to the left, you can see something that represents a hellhound. And you can see the hellhound is spitting something out, like maybe vultures. Do you remember last week we talked about the vultures?
Yeah.
And then the second picture I sent you is the other half of it, where you see the dragon. And if you look right by the dragon's mouth, you can see, if you zoom in on that, it looks like smoke, like fire, right? And then the last picture I sent you, it's kind of down a little bit. That big blue piece right there in between, that's the portal and the rock formations around it. It was like it recorded the dragon trying to, protecting, right, shooting fire, and the hellhound on the other side of us releasing all of this vultures or whatever yuck. And then we're in that blue portal in the middle. And again, I know it sounds crazy, but what are the odds? This is exactly what happened. And what are the odds that it got imprinted on a crystal?
And this crystal, you said, was completely clear before?
Yes. When we very first got them, they were completely clear. And I'm actually a little upset because Valdez made me wash mine yesterday. And I had a whole bunch of events that had been imprinted on it, and they're all gone. She said it wouldn't clear them out.
And so after we came back from that hike, we were here at the office sitting. We were having lunch.
Yeah.
And
as I hiked, I had to eat something. I was faint. I got Taco Bell, though, so I was better.
I had salad. Anywho, and I kept having this feeling like the same emotion that I was having during our event in that little portal. And I heard my higher self she said emergency council meeting, and checked out, and I just literally zoned out. I couldn't do anything, say anything. And then the next thing you know, Tina's looking over at me and she's like, I gotta go to, and she like almost passed out at the table.
Yeah, like my head, I just looked at Laura and I went, uh-oh. And she was like, what's wrong? And I was like, I'm going to go into stasis. And I literally, like, my eyes closed and my head just dropped. Eventually, her and Valdez, like, I mean, I just fell asleep on the table, like my head down on the table. Laura and Valdez, because, you know, I'm not a small woman, and they were able to get me up and get me into Valdez's office and laid me on what's called a crystal mat that is supposed to like give you energy. And she told me, she said, you never moved, you never made a sound, nothing. I slept there for 2.5 hours. And then I woke up, and because the mat was hot, and I woke up and I walked into my office and I laid down on my couch. And the next thing I know, my husband is there and he's tapping me on my leg. And I was like, what are you doing here? And he said,
it's like, you want to get it on?
I
see you laying there.
No, that didn't happen. He said, you texted me and said you couldn't drive home and to come get you. And I was like, I did. And so I was like, oh, okay, I just need to go home and sleep. Because, you know, this has happened before, right? Where my body, if I expel too much energy at one time, or if there's a big download coming, I'll just fall asleep wherever I'm at. And I don't have narcolepsy. It's not like that, because I'm still lucid, but I'm just tired. And so I went to go and try and like put my computer away. And all of a sudden, Valdez walks into my office. Leila walks into my office. And then Laura comes, and all three of them are just looking at me. And I have no idea what you guys were talking about. All I know is all of a sudden they pushed my husband out of the office. They stood around me, and Valdez was doing her thing. Leila started chanting like in this like ancient native thing. And Laura, I felt Laura touch the back of my head. And I don't know how long it took, but like maybe a few minutes.
Was it 5 minutes?
About 5 minutes. My eyes popped open. I was like, oh, I'm fine. I'm absolutely fine. I mean, it was the strangest,
weirdest day.
Again, I know it sounds crazy because we are crazy. We understand it sounds crazy, but it happened.
Yeah.
So,
and I don't know what that emergency council meeting was.
I don't.
But I know there was a lot of anger when you came back. You said that they were angry about the danger having been so close to us.
Right.
Like we were supposed to be safe in that environment when we were doing our.
Yeah, that was the download I was getting when I was asleep. Was that it was, and I know we're kind of going into a little bit more mystical this time, but it was almost like the protection that we set, that it wasn't, not anybody was like mad at anyone specific. It was more of just like, we should have counted on the darkness trying something, being more shady than they were. So
they've been getting trickier and trickier.
Yes, they have been getting trickier and trickier. So Leila, right after that event happened, so a few days later, well, it's probably about 5 days later, Leila went out to the spot, because, you know, she was the one that told us where it was in the first place. And she went out to that spot. And next thing you know, Laura and I get a text message from her with a picture. And all it says is, it says X marks the spot. And we were like, what? And so we look at the picture, and I'm going to send this picture to you as well. There is a perfect X over the top of the portal in chemtrails.
Yeah, I actually got that picture. That one.
Yeah, I did send that one to you already.
So how often do you guys see X's in chemtrails out there?
Never. I don't. Not
I'm very aware of the
not up and down.
I haven't seen an X. I've seen different formations, but to see an X exactly at the spot where this place is. Right. Like, what are they? You know, you can go into conspiracy theorist, whatever you like. Like, what is in that chemtrail? Are they aware of this portal? Are they trying to shut it down? Or is it just a happy coinkydink? I don't know.
I don't believe in coincidences.
No, I don't either. But I'm going to leave it up to the people to make their own judgment. But it's just very
odd
that this magical portal is there, and all of a sudden there's toxic stuff being sprayed in the air right over it.
I've seen X's like that before in the sky, but they're like, if you look up at the sky,
they're crisscross.
But if in that picture, if you can see, it's like you're looking at the mountain and the X is facing you. It's not like, it's literally like it's over the top of the portal. So that's what I found so unusual, because for it to be a plane discharge, right? That means 2 planes where there is not a single airport anywhere near it. Either they both had to have gone, down at an angle, almost hitting the mountain, and then another one had to do that. But where's the chemtrail from where they went back up? Or did we just have 2 plane crashes and nobody knows? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I want to zip back to the Hellhound thing. What would happen, and not that you may know, except something bad, likely, what would happen if the Hellhound had reached you guys?
There's different theories. I mean, one of them is like they can retain your soul in that plane, your spirit, your higher self, whatever it is that's there, they can retain it in that plane, sort of trap you.
My thought process is the Hellhounds weren't after us. I believe the Hellhounds they wanted into the portal. Because I mean, it was like
fear.
It was like literally like, I mean, it's literally like this portal straight into the heavenly realm, right? And so that's what I think.
Yeah.
Or like Laura said, to scare us,
don't come back.
Don't come back. Yeah.
So what you guys' presence there is essentially like you have the door propped open with your foot, and it's there. It's an opportunity for them to then travel to another place.
That's what I believe. That's why I think we were shoved back into our bodies so quickly, because
it was instantaneous. That had never happened.
Because when our body is, it doesn't necessarily leave your body. It's just you're literally going into a different realm, right? A different reality, if you will. So it was almost like we were vulnerable in that state. But when you do that, you're opening the Merkaba light. Like your Merkaba light is anybody who can see light, right, can see it's like a spotlight coming up from there, which is, I'm sure, what attracted the Hellhound. And so it was like it was trying to come in there. You know what I'm saying?
And you said earlier, basically there is no hell. So it sounds like the Hellhounds need a new name.
Well,
yeah, I didn't name them.
Yeah. Well, so the word hell, okay, because God did not create a hell, right? But the word hell actually comes from the space that we can put ourselves in. Like if you pass away and you feel like you don't have value enough that we can put ourselves in a hell space. It is where it's the 4th dimension basically, and it's all darkness. It's like a holding room for those who are trying to work through some shit to get to where their next place is, right? And so
they're either looking for forgiveness or
right. That's where the word hell actually comes from, is that darkness, that dark 4th dimension. So because it's not a nice place to be, it's scary and it's yucky. And so a lot of things that are named after hell in truth, right? Not in like religion but when it's actually broken down in truth of how it is, it's Hellhound because it's a representation of that darkness. A lot of dark things are referred to as hell blah, right? Hell whatever, because it's dark, and not just in color, in spirit, it's dark.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Well, how's your wrist, Laura? Because you said
so that after when we got back, I went to my chiropractor, and he's like, "I think you have a hairline fracture," and it was hurting like hell. So he's been doing some adjustments, and I've been wearing a brace. I haven't officially gone to the doctor, he is a doctor, but
yeah, to an MD
to get an X-ray and stuff. So I'm just going along his chiropractic suggestions.
Yeah.
Maybe no hikes for a little bit, huh? I mean,
Do what?
maybe no
Sorry.
hikes for a little bit.
No,
We're actually going back out to the portal tomorrow.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, there's very little that can stop me.
Yeah. And the thing is the break I saw when she fell, as opposed to the break she had after we got shoved out of the heavenly realm, like
the pain had diminished probably by 50%.
Yeah, because the break she had originally was like a complete break. When after we came out of the heavenly realm, it was more like a hairline fracture. And honestly, if that damn hellhound hadn't showed up, you probably would have been healed. That's probably why you're not letting it heal. You're like, I'm gonna go back and punch this hellhound with my cast
with my other hand.
Well, I wonder then if you go back out when you go back out there tomorrow, if it could heal completely then.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was very painful. I was debating. I was like, I may need to go back and put ice on this immediately. And I was like, nope, I'm not going to let them, distract me with this, because it was the dumbest fall. Like, I shouldn't have fallen.
And no, because if anybody's going to fall, it's going to be me. And I went down. And I went down at first,
regardless of that. But it was very goofy. And I was like, you're not stopping me. Bring it.
And one other quick note about this: so when Leila went out the second time and took that picture, she actually got a picture, I will send you as well, of the opening of one of the portals of one of the sides of the mountain. But we never told her about the mushroom formation, like none of that, because I was so out of it that day when we came back. We didn't really have a conversation about the mushroom and the rocks and the stuff.
She was with a client most of the day.
And anyway, so when she went out there, like 5 days later, the day she took the picture with the X over it, she said, I was walking along and I got just almost to this mushroom formation, which would be exactly where Laura had fallen. She said, I felt this wall of like something trying to push me back. And she said, I clearly heard, you're not, you can't be here. And Leila is a lot like Laura. She's a warrior. And she was like, did you see the army behind me? I'll go where I want. And so she pushed through, and she said it was right before this weird mushroom formation. So we knew exactly where she was at, but we hadn't told her about the mushroom formation. So it wasn't like she was coinciding stories, But yeah, that was really super interesting. And while I'm thinking of it, I'm going to send you that right now, the picture of the opening, because she said she kept going, and she kept going even past where we had been. And this went into the side of the mountain, and she went inside of it. And she said once she went inside of it, she said it felt like it was, that heaviness went away. She felt like she was in a different land.
Yeah, she's like, I went into a different time, like a time period, but just different land of the lost type thing. It was, she said it was very peaceful and beautiful, but it was like, it was not.
And she said that heaviness went away that she had felt all the way up to there. So yeah, that was interesting. And the other thing I found interesting is she said that because there's no water out there, it's a desert. And she said that when she went through the opening, there was actually water flowing. And she said she almost didn't keep going. And but she was like, no, screw this. It's just water. And so she went through the water. And it was when she got on the other side of the water that she said, I'm telling you, I was in a different land. So I thought that was really interesting.
Oh yeah, hit me up tomorrow afterwards. I'd like to hear what's going on.
Jen's like, I think that maybe you just need to email me every day and tell me how your day went.
Seriously. A lot going on lately. Well, yeah. Okay. So let's travel to Scotland here for a few minutes and talk about Loch Ness. This is on the list.
So, all right. So this will actually encompass the Loch Ness Monster, Bigfoot, Yeti, dragons, and unicorns. Okay. So as we're sitting here and we're talking about portals, right? And we're talking about how they open and close all the time. And I don't understand, or I don't know the privy to the information of why, but the human body, most human bodies, and I think we talked about this last time, Shannon, most human bodies cannot withstand going through those portals, right? And so there are guardians that do their best to protect those portals to keep humans out of them. It still happens, right? Because we have like the 411 phenomenon, and that's literally, the
same as 420.
No. 420, you go into a different kind of hole.
Yeah.
But anyways, so when these portals open, there are beings that try to keep us out of those portals, right? And so Bigfoot he watches over the portals in forested areas. Yeti is tundra, right? Like frozen tundra. Dragons are air, unicorns are mountains, and not necessarily because there's not just one of any of these. The Loch Ness monster there are hundreds of them. It's not just one Loch Ness monster. It's not just Nessie, but there have been many reports of people trying to get to the bottom of Loch Ness, right? And it's just Loch in Scotland means lake, so it's Lake Ness in Scotland. They say it is the deepest lake in the world, and that it is nearly impossible to get to the bottom of it. And there have been many reports of people that, they do like the little, what is that called? An echogram, where they like go across the top of the water and like shoot it down to see what the formations are underneath. Anyways, so I was reading this one, and it was talking about these 3 rocks that different companies kept finding. And every time they would go down to dive for them, number one, they're so deep, it's really hard to get to them. But every single time they would try, this river creature or lake creature would come out of nowhere. They would either chase it or run from it, right? And then when they would try and go back to that position again, these 3 big rocks, they wouldn't be there anymore, right? But they're too big and too heavy for the water to have moved them. Like they have to be physically being moved. So it's kind of like this weird little phenomenon. And so when I read that, I was like, what is that? And so I asked God, I was like, what is that? Like, is there something inside of these rocks that's really cool or whatever? And he said, they're 3 viable dragon eggs. And
I have dibs on one of those.
Yeah, Shannon, you can have one. Laura's gonna take one. When they hatch, you guys can fly around together.
Mother of the dragons, yes.
Yes. Cersei.
I have the shirt.
But anyways, he said that they are 3 viable dragon eggs, and that they will hatch when it's time, and that these lake or river creatures, that's what they are. It's protecting him.
Yeah, because when you're out and you see either a Bigfoot or a Yeti or the Loch Ness, you instinctually you follow that.
You follow or you run,
or one or the other, right? And I would follow it.
I probably would.
You probably would. So it's taking you away from
the danger,
or being transported. Who knows what those specific portals are? They're not the same type of portal vortex that Tina and I are going to and visiting. Ours are more of like an energetic portal.
Yeah.
Their portal is to me almost seems like a portal into another either.
Well, it's where the sex workers hang out.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah,
back there. There's a camp of sex workers, and
they got underground. They got pimps everywhere.
But anywho, that is our belief and what we've been.
So yeah, that would be the portals that if you physically walk in, you do not come back out, or you mentioned 411, or you come back in pieces or somehow changed, different, right?
With no trace, no.
Well, and I don't know if you, Laura, if you know about this, but what Shannon and I are referencing, there's literally a phenomenon called 411, and it Shannon, you probably could describe it better than me.
Well, yeah, it's people that go out into the wilderness. They could even be with other people. Like, let's take with other people, for instance. A lot of times it's someone that's a child or someone that has a learning disability of some sort, or, well, and the opposite end of the spectrum is super smart people, by the way. That's a whole nother side of that. Anyhow, take a father and a son. They're walking up a trail. Dad can see the son right ahead of him, 10 feet, 15 feet, whatever, very close. Kid goes over the rise of the hill, up and down, and then father's right behind. Kid should be there. Kid is not there. Kid is gone. There have been cases where they have found young children, I'm talking like 2 or 3, up hundreds of feet of rocky, craggy, bristle-covered cliffs with just a diaper or, missing some of their clothing, or clothing is on backwards. Yeah, no scratches to their feet, no injuries. Now, how did this kid get up there? People are like, well, maybe a cat drugged the kid up there. Well, where's the evidence that a cat drugged the kid up there?
Yeah.
The kids don't always, or people, kids and people don't always come back. There have been cases where they go missing, search parties go out, weather moves in, which now that can be explained away in some cases, of course. But there have been also some of these 411 cases where people go missing. You have 200-300 people searching in, trained search and rescue, grid patterns, nothing found, or some things found. Later on, months, years even, they'll come across like a skull cap or something of one of these folks. Right off of the trail where they freaking went missing in the first place. Like, of course, they look there. So that's the missing 411 stuff. I have talked to David in the past, and I have several of his books. Fascinating data points that have to be hit before he puts these cases into his books. But there's a lot of strange stuff going on out there.
It's like, how can anybody deny the magical or when all these just...
Well, because it's massive. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of reportings, and they're all in national parks.
Yeah.
Which I'm not going to go conspiracy theory here, but I'm just going to say, how interesting is that they're all national parks.
Do you guys have any bead on, because you guys can see a lot more than other folks, so I'm just going to ask this, because it's been postulated about cave systems lining up with some of these things, right? These missing people and this and that. What kind of bead do you guys have on cave systems? Like, what's in there? Is there anything dark going on there?
So I'm going to tell...
Disgustingly dark.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you. Have you ever watched the Hellier series?
No, I haven't.
It drags a little. I had to fast forward a lot because I get bored easy. But the information is really good. But anyways, so that is what kind of like prompted me to start asking Father, like, okay, so what's this all about? He gave me this picture of all of this underground cave system that during the Cold War, the military, the American, I'm so going to get yeeted for this. There's going to be a hitman out after me for saying this out loud, but I'm going to do it anyways. Because God said to us today, before we even started, speak your truth, say everything, how it's taken is none of your business. So I am protected. Here we go. So they used them during the Cold War for military installations and for prominent, like government, wealthy people that bought a spot, so that if there was a nuclear war or there was bombings or whatever, they felt that they would be protected inside these mountains, right? Inside these cave systems. And some of them are pretty elaborate.
I went to one in Kentucky.
Where they have been, well, Kentucky's where Hellier's at. But they've been made into very advanced, with computer systems, with all the accommodations of home, if you will. When the military moved out of those after the Cold War, and I can't say whether or not this was I believe, my gut tells me that it is something that our government agreed to, but I have been told that different extraterrestrial beings now inhabit those.
I mean, is that your thought on the 411 then?
My thought on the 411, because I believe it's aliens that inhabit those from other actual planets. What I think comes through the portals are things like skinwalkers or
Times now, Tina.
I take it back.
Get the soap out right now.
I know. I got some strawberry Dr. Pepper. Hold on. Okay, we're good. I believe things like that troll, right, that we talked about last week. I believe that came through a portal because I'm just going to have it. Do I think I know. Okay. So I just asked and got confirmation. Anything that is not of a human body cannot be born on this earth. So anything that has a negative or demonic energy within it cannot be actually physically born into a human body. It can encompass, it can take over, it can, that kind of thing, but it cannot be born into a human body. So I believe all of the yucky stuffs that is not from another planet, like an alien to me is from another planet, right? And so I believe all the yucky stuff, like the sex workers, the trolls, even fairies maybe, or whatever, all of that stuff comes through portals.
So what about these other, because you mentioned 4 other guardians of portals.
Right. So you have dragons, right? Dragons are air. Unicorns are mountainous areas. You know how we always get these little every now and then we'll get these little snippet videos of people say, oh, it's a dragon or it's a unicorn. Or I actually have seen one video in the last 5 years of an actual unicorn, and it was up in the mountains, and I just sat there and started crying because I knew that it was real. And I'm very, very drawn to unicorns. So, and they're not these cutesy little jump around. I mean, they are a big, powerful horse with a horn, and which they even talk about it in the Bible. For those of you that need some biblical reference, they talk about a horned horse in the Bible. So, and I can tell you where the myth of unicorns being magic came from if you want to know. But and then so you have Yeti, which is basically a white Bigfoot, but they're built differently. Whereas a Bigfoot is more like a really big Neanderthal man with hair. A Yeti is almost like they're designed for the cold. So they have very, very little neck, and their arms are shorter and fatter, as well as their legs.
I'm a Yeti.
Oh, God.
You just described me.
You be nice. You be nice to yourself. Stop that.
I'm just kidding.
No one's going to call you a Yeti.
Well, they're not going to do it and live.
That's right.
So anyway, sorry, she just threw me out there. But anyways, because it is literally made for, like the unicorns, okay? They're a big, powerful horse, but they're short because they have to, the longer your legs, the closer your body is to the ground, right? If you're low and wide, you have more stability, right? Which I'm low and wide, so I get lots of stability, right? I don't fall down much. So dragons are air, unicorns are mountains, Yeti and each one of them is literally designed for their environment. And so a Bigfoot, forest, Yeti, frozen tundra, unicorn, mountains, and
Loch Ness.
Loch Ness type creatures are for the water.
Loch Ness in Michigan. Well, that's not Loch Ness.
Well, and they're everywhere. You think about how much ocean, right, there is on this earth, and that has never been charted, it's just like Bigfoot started coming up more and more and more as we started getting deeper and deeper and deeper into our forested areas, right? As we're getting more and more into people going to tops of mountains, you're starting to get these sightings of unicorns. It's very interesting because they do stay as hidden as possible.
Now, Are we able to talk about what's going down tomorrow at the office with the demonic situation?
So, yeah, so it's a very interesting case. Valdez brought it to us. It's a young mother, and she has a really horrific past, childhood sex trafficking, that kind of thing. Has really pulled herself up. Went through a lot of drug abuse. Has really come out on the other side. A good mom. Works hard. Really great person. And she came to Valdez. We actually did a demon removal on her probably about 6 months ago. And that one was a little bit cray cray because every time I would touch her, she would scream like I was burning her. But it did eventually come out. And that actually, because Shannon, last time you had asked if we had ever come across things materializing in people's mouths, she actually started spitting out like this, like sand stuff. That I know was not there earlier. So, and it wasn't like a mouthful or anything like that, but it was just like these, like she was just like spitting out like tiny popcorn seeds almost, you know what I mean? But it was like sand like. I totally forgot about that. Yeah. But anyways, so she contacted Valdez the other day and she said, there's something very dark in me again. I need to come in for demon removal, or like, can you guys just look and see if there's something there or whatever? When she very first was telling me, I was like, yeah, that's unusual. You know what I mean? Like for something to, because she really did get past all of that. And once you've had one attached to you that deeply, usually you're pretty good at like not ever going back into a space where that could come back in. Right. So I said, well, yeah, I'll do an assessment. I don't have any issue with doing that, but I can't lie. So I'm going to be very brutally honest with her. And if it's a mental issue, I'm going to talk to her about that. And Jen said, Tina, she's named it. And I was like, excuse me? And she said, she's named it Dahlia. I said, as in Black Dahlia? And she said, yes. And so when somebody names an entity within them, and I'm not talking about a man naming his penis, although that could be demonic. Just kidding. When somebody has something within them that they have bonded with to the point that they feel that they need to have a name for it, that's very, very dangerous. And especially if if they say it's an angel on my shoulder, it's light and it's love and it's, yeah, okay. But when you're telling me it's a darkness,
it's not like a double personality, like she named another.
Right. It's not a split personality.
That would we be sending her to the doctor?
Yeah, that would be schizophrenia, and we would need to have psychological assistance. Anyway, and she said that it's like bringing up all of this like sexual rage in her. I was telling Jen, I said, that because of her psychology from her childhood, sex was control for her, to not be physically abused. And so obviously there's something has happened over the last 6 months that has put her back into that space, but she's literally embodying this. And so I told Valdez, I said, we need to take care of this as soon as, because this lady is like the sweetest lady. She really is. And I said, we need to handle this immediately because this ain't good. This one don't feel right, So, we have a team put together. We would have done it sooner, but she is, like I said, she's a single mom and she didn't have anyone. She wanted to have someone who could take care of her child for a couple of days so she could recoup, and they couldn't do it until the weekend. So that's why we're going to do it tomorrow.
If she's named it, doesn't that greatly diminish your chances of success?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, it does.
But it hasn't met us yet.
But it diminishes. So what it does is it makes it more difficult for us because she has a bond with it. And so, because the bottom line comes down to, we don't remove anything. We make the environment and the body so uncomfortable for it. We get so much light and love and peace shooting into the body, and have the person saying, I choose to release this.
I'm free will.
Yeah, because it's free will. And so,
and strangely enough, a lot of people are very reluctant to release this because it's sort of it has become part of their identity. And it's almost like this fear of
Who will I be?
This entity makes me feel strong or powerful, but I know it's darkness, but who will I be weak and vulnerable if I release this? So that is actually the hardest part versus getting in there and ripping out it.
Yeah, which is why we do have to dive into the attachment that they have to it. And one of the main things that we ask right off the bat is, who will you be without this? So that we can have that conversation and say, I understand that you think that this is making you strong and powerful, but the thing is, all it is doing is creating fear. It comes out as anger, right? That's how your body's processing it. But remember, the moment we go into fear, we lose the ability to have rational thought. So it's actually not serving you. And that fear will be gone if you remove it. So it's just helping to educate them on how it is affecting them so that they can see, oh, yeah, no, I don't want this. This one is, I don't know why, I just have this really strong, from the moment we talked about it, I just have this really weird feeling that it's gonna be I think this is gonna be even more challenging than the 9-year-old girl who was in full possession.
Now, is it possible that this isn't a new demon, but the other one had just kind of, okay, you see me, I'm gonna go into hiding for a little bit, and it's just popping back up into her life and having more control?
So I don't discount anything. Yeah. I don't discount anything until I actually physically see her, because when we physically see her, we can feel where it is attached and how deeply it's attached. So that will tell me how long it's been there. So I'll know if I just missed it last time, or
they're good at hiding.
Oh,
they can come down from past life contracts that you've made with them. They want to continue to embody in some kind of consciousness, and sort of like, okay, in return, I'll give you this if you let me reside in your light and your energy for a little while. So it's sometimes deep bonds and sometimes contracts that you're not even aware of that you've made. So it's sort of like we have to rescind contracts and have them agree to do that. And sometimes it's hard when you're not aware if you've even signed a contract.
Right.
Right. You're like, I don't remember doing that. But so there's a lot of tricky things interweaved in all of that.
See, so tomorrow is a normal Friday for Tina and Laura. They will be hiking out to a portal and then exorcising a demon. I gotta get out there.
And we're having a slumber party.
And we're having a sleepover with some of the practitioners. We've all decided to have a sleepover.
Oh, there's gonna be some stuff going down then. Even when y'all are sleeping, I'll bet stuff's going down.
So, Shannon, you're welcome to come to our sleepover. You're the only. We will make you an honorary free will healing practitioner for the night. You will see shit.
I just won't sleep, and I'll just be watching you guys because all y'all are traveling to places and I'm doing all this cool stuff. I'll probably see stuff just watching you guys sleep.
Honey, we'll be taking you with us. You think you're just gonna sit there and watch?
Hey, even if I have to be close to a hellhound, I'm all for it. Whatever I need to do.
There you go.
Break the bonds, man. Break the bonds.
Yeah.
All right. Next on the list is the ghost in Laura's house.
Oh, white man.
The white man.
Well, there's two, one with my son, one with my daughter. So white man, my son was 6. My daughter wasn't born yet. And my, at the time, husband. And I moved into this house on the water. Really nice house. And like I said, my son was 6. And he would take off running just random. And he's ADHD. So in the beginning, I was like, it's just him burning some energy.
Go, boy, go.
Burn it. And then finally, I'm like, this is a little excessive. I'm like, what is going on? What are you doing, babe? And he said, Mom, I'm following the white man. And he keeps hiding. And I'm like, okay, guards up. What's going on with this white man? And I had it at the time. I hadn't felt anything odd about the house. I'm like, okay, next time, give me a heads up that you're not just jumping off the couch and running. Tell me it's white man. So next time he tells me it's white man. And so I follow him into my bedroom, and there's nothing there, of course. And it is ice baby cold in there. And I was like, okay, there's something definitely going on. And I never physically saw it myself, but we had guests at the house and like, hey, somebody just walked into your son's room and we'd go in there, and again, ice cold. And it didn't feel menacing or threatening. It was just some guy walking through the house. And finally, we asked the neighbors who had lived there for years, we're like, hey, did anybody die in this house? And they're like, yeah, the guy that owned this house a few before we moved in, he was a painter. And so my husband said, did he wear like white overalls or something? Like, yeah, that was his, his uniform was like white. Back in the day, it was probably in the 50s or 60s. He wore this white outfit. And one time my husband was out of town and my son was sleeping with me. So I'm assuming I was attracted to my son, child. They're always usually attracted to their happy energy and that fun stuff. So my son is sleeping with me, taking advantage. Dad's not home. And our bed just like starts shaking back and forth. And mind you, we're on the coast, so there's no earthquakes there. But it felt, I had lived in places with earthquakes and it felt like an earthquake. And I'm like, what's going on? And my son is just laughing, like it's all fun. And he's like, the white man was pushing the bed.
Ooh.
But again, it wasn't menacing. It wasn't threatening. The last time I felt it or saw it is my brother had moved in with us at the time. And I believe he said, I saw something go into, I'm not going to say my son's name, go into his room. We'll walk in there and I put my hand, they have like this little play table on there, and it left, when it's cold and it leaves that imprint, it was ice cold in there. So that was the last time we saw or felt it. And I don't know if it was because we acknowledged him and started acknowledging him at that point. And I sort of started saying like, you can move on. You don't have to stay here, even though he wasn't menacing. But I was like, it's not after you pass, right? The goal is to get to some kind of realm, heavenly realm, whatever you want to call it, not hang around your old house, right? So, and he was probably going, who are these invaders, right? Like in the movie The Others. Right. So after that, he went away, and then I had my daughter, and we moved into another house. She was probably about 2, I guess, because she was already beginning to babble and to talk, and I have a video of it as well.
She sent it to me last night. It freaked me out.
So yeah, so she, my son was not feeling anything in this house, but she kept laughing, like being in her room, and she'd laugh, and she was like, and I have, of course, the baby monitor, and I hear her laughing, and she's going, it's funny.
You're so funny.
You're funny. And, and my son was at school at the time. He was already 8 or 9. And she just says, she's so funny. And then at night I hear little pitter patter feet running across and just little giggling. And my daughter, of course, was in her crib, but I got up one night and I see this little kid in the corner of the house, and he's just laughing, and he runs off and takes off to my daughter's room. And again, it didn't feel menacing or threatening at all. And so one day I asked my daughter, I'm like, what, who do you keep talking to? Who is that? She's like, it's Carlos, my friend Carlos, which was interesting because that's my dad's name. But anyway.
And your dad passed by?
No, not yet. No. But it was just funny. I was like, of all names, Carlos. And I was like, who is it? She's like, it's a little boy, and he comes and plays with me. I don't know why I'm trying to imitate my daughter's voice. She said, it's a little boy that comes and plays with me. And again, never threatening at all. And same thing, I told it, you don't have to. I didn't find out if anybody lived there. Nobody knew. It was it was an older neighborhood, but all new people that lived in the neighborhood. So I never found out if anything had happened. Of course, I did my extensive research trying to see if anything had happened in that house, and it didn't. But
that you're aware of.
That I am aware of. Later, my husband or ex-husband at that time actually did take his life in that house. So I don't know if there was anything negative afterwards, but the little child went away. So those were 2 encounters. And then I have lots of pictures. I loved filming my kids when they played together and their laughter. And they say that, energy is attracted to good energy, right? To laughter, and especially to children. And anytime I would film them, there were just multitude of orbs, and it wasn't dust, and it wasn't, bugs. They were everybody trying to debunk it. It was cotton ball sized orbs just floating around them. And again, I have video of that I will send to you, and just beautiful energy and beautiful light. So luckily never any, to me personally in my homes, I've had negative experiences elsewhere, yeah. But to me personally in my home, no negative experience, just a happy, joyful energy, I guess, if you want to call it that. So
peaceful. Mm-hmm. Well, the mean ones are too scared of you.
Probably.
Well, that's a good thing. You keep that energy up. That's all I know.
Yeah, and this is still, and like I think I said last time, I was like, just pay attention to the children. They're the light, the good light, is attracted to children, and the beautiful stuff, the magic of the world, is attracted to children. And I'm sorry if I'm repeating from last show, but even if you are a person that reads Bible, believes in the Bible, it constantly says, be of childlike faith, be of childlike nature. And I think that is to be able to see the magic and the beauty, not the ugly stuff, the beauty of the world.
Right. Because what you focus on will come.
Mm-hmm.
Like sex walkers.
So I actually, just as you were sitting here talking, so my ghost story for several different ones, but the one that I'm going to tell today was that house. And I literally just put all this together as we were sitting here talking. So when we lived in that house, where the sex workers would come visit, it was a older house built in like the early 1900s, an old farmhouse, and the vents would go like directly from one room, like from one floor down into the basement, and you could hear stuff through them. It was kind of creepy, but there was one room in the basement. So you walk in, you go down the stairs, creepy old farmhouse basement, and there was like the washer and dryer there. That room was fine. The second room where the furnace was,
It's always the furnace room.
well, that one was, it was a little bit creepier, but not so bad.
Okay.
The very last room, even my parents, the only thing that they put in there was like if they would can vegetables or whatever, but they would never go in there to take them or get them out. I always had to go.
They sent you.
Yes. I always had to go get them or take them out. But
they scared. Let's send the 5-year-old.
Let's send the child. But anyways, my brother, the one who tormented me so very much as a child, he would never go into that last room. Like, he was terrified of that room. So that's where I made my playhouse, right? Because that was the place I was going to be the most safe, because he was more afraid of that room than his desire to harm me, right? So I would always hang out in there. So at nighttime, and I can't, because it's been years and years and years, I cannot tell you if there's a correlation, but my ghost story was, my earliest one was, at nighttime, I would hear a little boy calling for help through the vents. And he would just be like, come help me. Please help me. I'm stuck. I can't get out of here. And it always used to make me so sad because of my own childhood. Like, because I was a kid and I was like, dude, I get you, and I would always sit there and talk to him, and he would just say, please help me. Please come help me. And now I'm almost wondering if it was those sex workers trying to maybe lure me outside.
Mm-hmm.
It's very interesting. That literally just clicked in my head.
Not the old lady, I've fallen and I can't get it.
Anybody calling from air vents is such a big bag of nope for me. No.
Yeah.
Probably a nope for me too.
Yeah, because it's in your home. That's
calling me in general, like in my home, versus not my kids, of course, but just hearing a voice saying, hey, Laura, come here. Hail to the no.
I am so putting like a secret like speaker or something
in your office. Oh, that's mean. I like it.
As a kid to a guest once, and I used to live in Argentina for many years, and my aunt had this huge ranch. They said it was haunted. I never experienced anything, but we recorded. So we did this recording. One of my friends, my cousin's boyfriend, was coming to spend the night, so we recorded on this, tape recorder back in the 80s, and we're like, get out. Yep. Yeah, I'm coming for you, right? So we're all sleeping in this one room, big slumber party, and I hear my cousin, you hear the play, the little click, get up, and then you hear the stop rewind.
Yeah, and if there's anybody calling your name from vents, the attic, the basement, or the woods, no.
Oh,
yeah, no thanks.
Yeah, well, because sex workers, that's what they're very much known for, is using the voice of someone that and trust, calling for help or calling for you.
Yeah.
So, and at that time in my life, I didn't trust anybody.
Yeah.
And so I could totally see them using this like wounded little boy's voice to lure me out, because that would be something that I would be like, another innocent child that's being harmed. I need to help this child.
Yeah. Especially if they use like your nickname or something, it's like,
well, I think my nickname was Asshole at the time. So
Mine still is. It's fine. We wear our badges as we should. What are you going to do?
Yeah. But a positive, loving experience would be probably about back in 1999, December 16th of 1999. My middle daughter was born at 24 weeks, and she lived for about 30 minutes. And we named her Faith because it was our faith in God that got us through. Now I have knowing in God, not just faith. But anyways, it was probably about 6 months after she passed away. I was in the kitchen and I was cleaning. My daughter, Kayla, who was 4 at the time, she was at daycare, and I just started crying and I was just so sad, and I was sitting there and I was wiping the counter down, and all of a sudden I feel this little hand on my butt, like tap my butt. And I turn around. In my head, I was thinking, that it was Kayla, forgetting that she wasn't there. I turn around and there's no one there. And I'm like, what? Oh, Kayla's not even here. And then I'm thinking, okay, you didn't feel what you thought you felt, right? And I was just crying. I was so sad. And so I decided I was just going to go lay down on my bed and curl up in a ball and feel sorry for myself. So I went and laid down on my bed, and I was laying with my back towards the edge of the bed. I literally felt the bed next to me like a little kid climbing up on the bed, and felt hands on my leg. I was just like, I feel you, baby. Thank you. Mommy's okay. And that was the last time I ever had an encounter like that with that, and it felt like it was just her saying, I'm okay, Mom. You're good. We're going to see each other again,
Wow. I'm so sorry about that.
Thank you. It was part of what has made me who I am. And while I miss her, believe it or not, I have had, with my trips into the heavenly realm, I have had the opportunity to see and speak with her. She's doing great. She conspires with God all the time. Like I literally, every time I go, she's always in what they call the throne room, which I don't know why they call it the throne room, because it's just a big wooden chair, because God's so not into pomp and circumstance. She'll be like sitting in his lap, and she's older than she was when she's not like a newborn. She's more like, it looks like she's like 3 or 4. And he's just laughing and laughing and laughing, and she's whispering and he's laughing. And then they see me and I'll smile. And I know that it's for me to remember that she's okay,
Well, thank you so much for sharing that.
And it's a beautiful experience.
Well, ladies,
we've talked about dark stuff today, so.
No, I appreciate everything that you guys have been willing to share over these last couple of episodes. Been incredible chatting with you. So, should we switch gears and go to the Patreon side of the chat?
Let's do it.
But before we do, let everybody know that's listening now on the public side where to find you guys.
George, Utah.
So you can find us on www.freewillhealing.com. So just like it sounds there, and we have the free will to heal ourselves. So if you go to our website, you can click on any of the practitioners' pictures. It'll take you to their bio. You can go to their personal websites. It's very well set up, so very easy to find. Laura and I do free assessments, like the one we're going to tell you about that happened yesterday on your Patreon account. We're starting to rethink that. No, I'm just kidding. No. We do free assessments. So anyways, we're on Facebook, Free Will Healing on Facebook, on Instagram. So come and follow us. We got lots of cool stuff going on. And we're gonna kidnap Shannon and have her come down here and make her experience some of this stuff.
Time to decalcify the old pineal gland and have some shit to talk about.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, ladies, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.